Hi everyone, it's me again, Kathleen from the Zenart team, and today is another winter, Christmas themed tutorial. So today we are doing a Christmas wreath, a very simple one that's still quite lovely. So it doesn't have to be very fluffy or very fussy for you to be able to paint your very own wreath. So I figured let's start with something simple, but it doesn't mean it's not perfectly pretty as well. So we need just a few colors actually, but the nice thing about greens is you can mix your very own greens if you want to have it deeper greens or more warmer greens. It's up to you. You can just tweak it towards the colors that you would rather use for your own wreath. Okay, so I shared the photo in the group earlier in the event, so you'll find it there. For those watching this on YouTube, for later upload, it will be down in the info below. I will be sharing the photo there if you would like to use it as your reference photo as well. Meanwhile, let's start painting. So I've already pre-sketched it. Right here you see the branch, the cone, the berries. So these are the three elements that this wreath has, and it's enough. I actually like it in its simplicity. It's very beautiful. So here is the reference. There we go. And again, you will find it in the event. So usually I would just use round brushes for this. This is fairly small, so I probably use my two small round brushes. Okay, and I might also want to, let's see, use a rigger brush for the pine needles. So when it's small thin lines like that, I really like to use rigger brushes. If you're still not sure how to go about things, especially with leaves and such, then just have some extra paper where you can, just your cheap paper, just to get the hang of the movement of your brush strokes. Okay, so let's set this aside and let's do a sort of practice just so you know what I mean. Okay, so whichever colors you have, use away. You can easily tweak the greens. If you find that your green is too, what do you call this, too bright, you can just add a bit of red or a bit of yellow, and that will change the intensity of the green. Okay, so let's for example, this green, this is permanent green light. So this is quite vibrant green. So if you don't want it to be that kind of green, then you can just easily add a bit of red to it. Okay. This is it here. This is permanent green. Then you just add a bit of red, and the green has been toned down. As you can see, add a bit more. Okay, that's too much. And it's an even deeper green. Okay, so as you can see, just like that, you can easily get various greens. So let's start with this green as the lighter green. So you can just do the length of your pine branch. And once you have that, then you can just add the needles. And with the rigger brush, it makes things very easy. And try not to go in just one direction. Try to vary the flow. And of course it tapers towards the end, but not so much because it's quite chunky still. Okay, and you leave it at this, and then later we will add another layer with a deeper color, and you immediately get a more three-dimensional pine branch. Okay, so next for the berries, you just have your circle, let's say. And let's use some red. This is a bright red, so I'll be using the red from here. And I usually want, when I need to leave a white, I just already paint around that area, and that's the white. And then I fill up the whole circle. Okay, don't stress about making things too perfect. There you go. And if I wanted to deepen it, I just add a bit of green to the red and just drop it to the areas that I want to darken. Or you can just use blue and make this a bit more purplish. It's up to you. You can go either way, but you want a highlight and then the local color and then darker sections for the shadowing. And you have your berry just like that, very easy. And for the cone, okay, let's do a simple one right here. Okay, let's say it's that shape. Okay, so I want to use this brown raw umber. And I just paint the whole section. And then I would usually wait for that to dry before I add my darker brown. So for the darker brown, you can just add blue to your raw umber. Okay, that's the easiest way that you can do it. So I would usually add ultramarine blue or Prussian blue to create a darker brown. If you want to keep your browns more, what do you call that? More harmonious. And then you can add shadows where you see them. Okay, so it's up to you depending on the brown that you have or the brown that you want to use. Okay, so let's now go to our main event. So just practice the elements, just so you you've tried it out before first doing it on your main paper. Okay, so here we have it. Okay, so let's start with the very first that we did earlier, the pine cones. So let's go back to the rigger brush. That's really perfect for this. So I've already mixed the color that I like. Looks good. I will be using this and a darker green later. So let's add some more to the mixture. And of course, you can always test it out on your paper just to be sure that it's the color that you like. Okay, I like it. It's a nice deep neutral green. So let's use this to add the shape. Okay, let's start with the shape. Like so. And once you have that, that's where you will do the needles from. So this is very easy to do with the rigger brush, like amazingly so. That's why whenever I need to do long thin lines, this is my go-to brush. This is a number 1 rigger from the Fine Line set. Again, try to vary the flow. Okay, I'm not going to overly do this because again I will add another layer of color later. Okay, and we'll go around. Okay, so I'll be twisting the paper around. Now let's go to the berries. Okay, so earlier I just used my small round brush and Purell red right here. Okay, so you must have you must envision, or you must take note where the source of light is. From my reference, the source of light is from here, so the highlights will all be on this side. Okay, so just keep that in mind. They should not be everywhere and all places, unless you have multiple sources of light, but more often than not, you'd want to have it on just the one side. So again, I will paint around that section, that's the highlight, and then paint around it to complete the berry. And then continue here, paint the highlight. Paint around it. This is another berry, so highlight, and then around. So you want a nice bright, not cool, not warm, a more neutral red for this. You want like a pure red. So again, do the berries one by one. Take your time, don't forget the highlight. This berry at the back, oh, this one actually has no visible highlight because it's been covered by the other berries. So not all will also have highlights. This one has a tiny bit. So if you don't want to go around the highlight one by one, then you can use a masking fluid to preserve that white, or you can just do the white after using your gel pen, your white ink, your gouache, or whichever white you like to use for adding the highlights after. So this is the red at the back without any highlights. And here we have a highlight. Okay, so just like that, you're done with the first layer of the berries. We just need to add another one to add the shadow, otherwise they're going to look kind of flat. Okay, here I'm going to add a bit of blue, or a bit of purple. Let's see, sometimes I experiment too. Okay, I think I prefer the purple. Okay, so using this purple, I'm going to use this here once everything is dried. So I can't wait for it to naturally dry, so I'm just going to use a blow dryer. then usually you would have your shadows on the other side of the highlight. So don't overdo it because you just want some shadowing. You don't want things to be too extreme. And of course, where these two overlap, you would also have shadow. Okay, and then I would just go over the sides with a wet brush just to soften. So this is a very quick and easy way to add dimension to your berries without going to so much trouble. So you apply your darker color and just use a wet brush to just soften the edges. Okay, once you have that, then you can now add the where the berries string on this branch. So I'm going to use the same brown raw umber, but with some yellow. Okay, and then I'm just going to use the deep red with purple mixture to connect to this branch. Okay, so there's sort of looping around it as well. So you can add that detail if you want. And there you go. So you have two sections almost done already. And it's just a repeat, really. Once you finished one area, you just go around and do the same thing. So very, very easy, but I like it. Very pretty, simple, but quite effective. Okay, so for this one, let's see. I wasn't too happy about the brown earlier, so let me just check my other browns. Okay, I think I prefer the umber right here for a warmer tone. So again, it's always up to your interpretation. You can always tweak things to whichever you'd prefer it rather to look more like. Let me just empty this section. Okay, so I'm using an umber. Okay, watered down and just, okay, it's a bit too brown. Don't like it. Okay, let's add a bit of golden quinacridone and see if it warms up a bit. Okay, this one I prefer so much better. I tend to prefer warmer palettes. So again, it is always up to your own style. So I'm using cold pressed paper. You want the sides to have that point because cones will have that silhouette. So try to get that silhouette. even without adding the other details, it'll already start to look like a cone. Okay, and again, we'll leave that to dry before we add the shadows. Meanwhile, let's go back here and do the next layer of green. Okay, so for this green, let's use, let's see. Okay, let me just empty one section. Okay, so let's use the same green and let's deepen the color. Okay, so to deepen the color, I would add blue to it. So you can add, it's up to you if you want to add ultramarine blue or indigo. Okay, so let's go for ultramarine blue first and see what we get. Okay, so the color is deepening, but it's a bit too bright. Okay, you have to make sure that they go well together. So I'm going to add a bit of red just to temper it down a bit. Let's see. Okay, I like it. It's now a deeper green compared to this one, and it will layer much better. So you can see it's more harmonious. So let's use that. It looks very deep here, but once you apply it on your paper, it looks really nice. So using the same method earlier, we'll layer it over the previous green that we did. Don't overdo this. You want the green under to still pop through. And then I just add around the main stem just to sort of frame it. Okay, and there you have your first leaf done. So it looks now more 3D, and with just 2 layers, that's enough. You can of course do more if you want to, but for me, I'm quite happy with this. I like it. I like how it goes with the red. The red is quite bright, but it's smaller, and the green is very thick right here, so they just perfectly balance each other. Okay, so now this is dry, so we can now add the where's my small brush? We can now add the shadows. Okay, when things are everywhere. Gosh. Okay, let me just use a different brush. Okay. So now we can add the brown here. So you can again use a deeper brown. So I'm going to use the burnt umber right here. If it's not deep enough, you can always add blue. So up to you. Okay, so let's add the shadows where they overlap against each other. So this one you can sketch darker because you will definitely be covering the sketching that you will be doing intensely. Okay, and then I would add water to the edges to allow them to flow out. Before they dry. Okay, so you take your time when you're doing this cone. And again, soften the dark colors on the edges. You can always just use the tip of the wet brush to just soften those edges. Okay, and you have your pine cone right there. Okay, let's continue. Okay, again, these three are done, and you can see already we'll just be duplicating the same elements on the other side. So let's do that. Okay, so now I'll just be going through things continuously. And then slightly tapering at the ends. Okay, first layer's done. Let's move to the berries. Where in the world did I put that brush? Okay. So let's go with the red again. So remember, one side is highlighted. It's this side here on the left. So let's do the same thing here. Let's paint around the highlight and then fill the area around it. just to try to keep the general circular shape. Okay, this one has a tiny bit. That's it. And there you go. So we'll wait for that to dry before we add the darker areas. Meanwhile, let's add the yellowish branch. Okay. There you go. And then the violet with red mix for the berries stringing around this. All right. And then, oh, thank you. I hope you try it out. It's really fun, quite easy. And sometimes wreaths are just so intense, but this one is quite easy, but quite lovely in the end. Okay, so now let's move on to this. Let's just wait for this to dry. So let's do the first layer for this one. Okay, so again, I used this brown right here with a little bit of golden quinacridone just to give it some warmth. Okay, try to have the nice tips at the sides. So the pine cones are not of the same size from the reference. I did it, I like it, but you can have them with the same size if you want. So you don't have to follow this exactly. Okay, and I'll wait for that to dry before I add the shadows. Meanwhile, I'll add the shadows here. So again, the same red with a little bit of purple mixed with it. To be specific, ultramarine violet. Okay, so let's add the shadows. Let's make it a bit darker. So just have them on the other side of the highlight. Okay, so I just applied them like that, but I will still soften them. So just with a wet brush, I'll just soften the edges so that they will fade softly towards the red. and you don't want to cover the bright red color. Okay, some red they're just a bit too light, so I'm just going to drop more red in. Okay, you can do that too. If you find that your red is just more faded looking, once it dried, then you can add another layer of red. All right, so next let's move on to this one. Let's use the darker brown. Okay, so burnt umber. Okay. And let's paint all the shadowed areas. Some areas have darker shadows, some less. So just try to see where you should have more shadows and where not too much. Again, before everything dries, just spread those intense shadows a bit. You can always drop in more of the dark brown if you need to boost it. So some areas will have like deeper recesses, so they will have the deeper shadows as well. And some not so much, so you can just relax a bit. And again, soften the shadows. So you'll still have some fewer dark edges, but more balanced. Okay, so the next cone is done, and this is the last step. And just using the same rigger brush and the same darker green, we'll add the next layer. Okay. So not overdoing anything, but making sure that it's well balanced with the base green. So try to vary the direction that the needles go. And again, just going to sort of frame around the base stem. Okay, I love it. I'm just fixing the shape at the base. And there you have it. So now, oh, okay, let me zoom into the pine cone. Okay, zooming. There you go. I hope you can see this better. So this is how the pine cone looks. So really just a first layer of wash of the brown that the umber that I mixed a little bit of golden quinacridone with. And then once it dried, then I just went into the crevices with the deeper brown. I used burnt umber and just applied them. And then before they fully dry, I just go and run my wet brush over the edges just to pull the color upwards. So some areas I would maybe add a bit more deeper brown just to bring them back, but already I like how it looks like. So you can always add more brown if you've faded it too much. So not a problem. But just 2 layers and you can already do this everything. It's just 2 layers. So how great is that? How easy and quite effective. A very simple but very lovely Christmas wreath. So I hope you try this out. You can add your message here inside or at the top. You can have this as a card or you can hang it at your house. It's such a fun painting to do. So I hope you give it a go. To my face so I can say goodbye properly. Okay, things are twisted. Okay, so here it is. Okay, add some light. All right, so I'm going to zoom so you can see properly. So just 2 layers of everything. Very simple, very easy, step by step. Again, you can practice on a separate page of this is just cheap paper, watercolor paper, but it's good for practice, just so you get the process of doing the leaf, the cone, or the berries. So I hope you try this out, and if you do share your very own with the group. I'd love to see them. So thank you as always for joining me, and I hope to see you next time as well. Have a great day. Bye.